I'm with George Handal from the Star of Bethlehem Winery. Now, George, what is the Star of Bethlehem Winery?
It's our traditional family. I take it from my dad, and my dad from grandfather, from grandfathers. And we did wine from special fruit. It's from pomegranate. The symbol of the Holy Land, it's grapes and pomegranate. And the first wine in the world, it was pomegranate, like 3,000 years ago. Our family, we kept this kind of tradition. It came from grandfathers to the two grandsons. And my chance that my dad, he was did it, and I took it from my dad. And we are the only Arab family in the Middle East who producing the pomegranate wine.
So how old is this business?
You can't say it's old because it's family tradition. It's since hundreds and hundreds of years. Grandfathers, grandfathers to my grandfather, to my father, to me, and now I'm teaching that to my daughters and son. We don't use yeast or any other chemicals for the fermentation process. We just use it from natural. We make yeast or I don't know what to call it in English, maybe bacteria. Let's say yeast, I think yeast. We make the yeast from fresh fruits, from different kind of fruits. To make yeast, we add it to the pomegranate juice, and it will become as a very good run fermentation process for the pomegranate. But it's very long process. And normally, in the old centuries, or let's say 100 years ago, it wasn't they wasn't selling yeast or yeast nutrient or something like that. They knew which kind of fruits have a very good yeast and yeast nutrient to feed the yeast inside the pomegranate juice.
Tell us a little bit about the history of the pomegranate wine in Bethlehem.
First, let me tell you about the history of pomegranate wine in the world. Global, the first nation who was doing the pomegranate wine was the Armenian. It was 3,000 years ago. And until today, maybe you find some wineries in the world, like 5 or 8 wineries maximum in the world, who are doing a pomegranate wine. Yeah, not more than that.
And what's the history of the pomegranate wine here in Bethlehem?
The history, as I told you, we are the only family did it since grandfathers to grandsons. We are the only family who doing that. There is no any other people or any other families even in Middle East, all of Middle East. Nobody do it from pomegranate. Most of the people, they do it just from grapes.
How did your family get involved in it?
My dad also, it's not kind of tradition, just, you need a person to like it, to live. And we like to live our ancient history because our roots belong to this land since thousands of years ago. And my dad, he liked to do for us something unique for the family. He was doing for us a special liquor, special cognac, and he would like to do special wine also. Sometimes also he was doing grapes wine, but not from the normal grapes. He was using the old tradition Palestinian grapes. We call it baladi. It's very, very dark. And now in this age, they use the skin of this baladi grapes. They use the skin to make natural color, like food color. So depending on the person, my dad, he was like this kind of art. I call it art. It's very special, and you need to involve in your soul in this kind of... It's not, we don't call it a business, because it's kind of something to live your roots since ancient history.
Now you have a label for your wine. What's on the label?
On the label, the symbol of Bethlehem, it's the star. And we call it the Star of Bethlehem. Star of Bethlehem. We write it in English, for the tourists to, the tourists should find a language, can read it and understand it. It's in English. Also, we write it in Aramaic. The Aramaic, it's the history of the area. The roots of Arab, Assyrian, and Hebrew, it was Aramaic. So we wrote in the Arabic and Aramaic. Aramaic language, the Aramaic language, it's the mother language for the Assyrian and for the Arabic. So even some Latin words, it's also came from Aramaic alphabet. Yeah.
How many bottles do you produce a year?
As I told you, it's a small family business, and we make like 1,500 bottles per year. And since 2 years, I'm trying to expand this job to make it like 3,000 or 4,000 bottles. We face the big difficulty to expand this winery, because of the closure. As example, if we need anything in the Arabic area, you don't find any suppliers like for the cork or for the bottles or for anything, because our community, they don't produce wine with or alcohol in very huge number. So this kind of business, it's very small. Every time we have to bring that from Israel, and we find a big difficulty to bring it from Israel to Bethlehem. All these checkpoint and the wall, the closure, it's make it for us complicated. It's not easy, not for financial, but it's not easy to buy what you need to expand your job.
And where do you sell the wine?
The wine, I sell it to souvenir shops because it's very small in number, like 1,500 bottle. I sell it to some souvenir shops and to some shops who are close or near from hotels. And there is some families from Bethlehem who like this kind of wine, the pomegranate wine, and they was waiting every time when I fill it, they took and they keep it for them in their house, in their home, because it's tasty and they like it very much, and it's full of history.
What's the process of making the wine?
It's complicated process. It's not like grapes. Grapes, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, the fermentation process will be end. It means it will be wine in 4 weeks, let's say. Sometimes take a week more or a week less, but that's the time. But for the pomegranate, it took sometimes 8 months or 9 months, sometimes 11 months, because the juice of pomegranate, it's antioxidant, and normally this kind of juice killing the yeast. To make a good and strong yeast, even you don't find a yeast. If as example, if I want to buy a special yeast for the pomegranate, global, I don't find it's difficult to find it. So we have to choose a special fruit which have a good yeast, and to choose another fruit have protein for this kind of yeast. We mix it together, we make it like a juice or like a jam, and we add a little bit on the yeast to feed it. And after that, from different fruits, from these two fruits, we add it to the pomegranate juice. This is to refresh the fermentation process, because it's very, very slow. Normally, between time to time, we have to create a yeast, because normally it's died, because the pomegranate juice, it's antioxidant, every time killing the bacteria or the yeast.
And what time of the year do you make it?
My dad was doing that, but he was doing like in small gallon, like 20 liters, 30 liters, 40 liters for the family. And sometimes he doing 100 liter we give to some friends. I began this kind of job 8 years ago or 7 years ago. I began to do it just like my dad, but not every year. In the last 8 years, I did it 3 times or 4 times, because, the pomegranate take a long time to clean the skin and to squeeze it and to make it as a juice. So I wasn't very special like my dad for that. But 10 months ago, my dad, he died. And now it's my responsibility to continue his story in the pomegranate wine. Yeah.
Is this the time of the year that you actually make it in the harvest season?
Yeah, we have to wait like 3-4 weeks more, like in the end of August, 1st of September. The juice, the pomegranate will be ready, and the acidity in the juice will be very low, and the taste of the juice will be great. So it's the best time, the first or middle of September.
Do people like it for Christmas and for Easter?
Yeah, as example, yesterday I saw some people, they celebrate in our wine in Washington. Yeah, he told me that he bought from me last Christmas in the Christmas market in Bethlehem Manager Square. And he told me, we celebrate in your bottle, in your wine, in your pomegranate wine in Washington. It was amazing wine. They like it very much.
What do people say about it?
The people in the beginning, they think it's not normal wine, because pomegranate, they are the first time know that there is a wine from pomegranate. So they see it's a strange thing. But when they try it, taste it, they back to take more bottles. And as example, for the tourists, when they come, in the beginning they took one bottle to taste it. But 2 days before leaving Bethlehem to travel to their homeland, they came and bought a lot of things, lot of bottles, because they say it's a very unique souvenir from Bethlehem and from Holy Land, and it's amazing bottle. Even they like the design of the label also.
What's your Facebook page for people who'd like to know more?
We call it at Facebook Star of Bethlehem Winery.
Okay, George, thank you very much.
Welcome.